Right, good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alden, and it's a very big pleasure to be with you today. We'd like to share a very warm welcome to everyone who's joined us, all CXs in Africa, and across the world, wherever you may be. Very excited to welcome you to our discussion today, where we're going to talk about AI, artificial intelligence within customer experience. It's brought to us by Freshworks today. Freshworks is the parent company behind a suite of products which include Freshdesk, Freshservice, Freshsales, Freshcaller, Freshteam, Freshchat, and Freshmarketers. So it's the end-to-end suite of products that are designed to work together in your organization in order to increase collaboration and help teams better connect, better communicate with their customers and with their co-workers. We're entering into an interesting stage in the evolution of artificial intelligence in customer experience. In these disruptive times, designing robust and effective digital customer experiences is very essential for any organization to succeed. Exceptional customer experience, or as we commonly refer to it, CX, leads to improved client retention. So we'd be interested to understand how AI is helping in improved customer retention as well as revenue growth. So we'd be interested to understand how AI contributes to revenue growth. Many organizations today are deploying AI and other technologies in order to improve their customer experience as well as their customer experience outcomes. So a very interesting lineup of speakers that we are going to be hearing from today. Firstly, we're going to have a presentation from Ashwin Sankar, who's the Senior Executive of Channel Sales at Freshworks. We will be presenting on improving customer experience with AI. How do we use AI to improve customer experience? We'll be followed then by a presentation by Charles Miller. He is based in Standard Bank, South Africa, and he's going to be talking about what he's doing and what his team is doing at Standard Bank to drive customer experience through personalization. And then towards the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A session. So I will moderate the discussion between Venkat, who's the regional lead in Middle East and Africa at Freshworks. Venkat won't be delivering a presentation, but he will participate in the Q&A session with Charles. And we've got some specific questions that we will be asking the two of them to give their various views and perspectives on. But that's also the point where we will get you, the audience attendee, involved. So we will open the Q&A line, and you'll be able to ask questions that we will also put to the panelists, Venkat and Charles. Right, so let's get going with the presentation by Ashwin Sankar. Ashwin has been with Freshworks for 2.5 years. Before that, he has, participated in quite a lot of volunteer work, and he has spent some time in Freshworks looking after sales and development in various roles over the last 2.5 years. We're super excited to be seeing that Freshworks is really trying to stake their place in making sure that South Africa achieves the CX outcomes that it wants through their SaaS solutions, so software as a service solutions, to driving the partnerships that they have within the African market, and Ashwin in particular through his channel sales and consulting responsibilities. So Ashwin, we'd like to welcome you to the webinar. If you have slides to show, please feel free to show them on your screen. Open your mic, introduce yourself to the audience, and we will looking forward to hear from you. We will touch base with you at the end.
Thanks for the introduction, Alden. Everyone, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're in the globe you're from. It's a pleasure to meet you all. And I'm going to quickly share my screen. I hope everyone can see it. Give me just a second. Yep, I believe everyone can see my screen. So, perfect. All right, thank you. So a quick introduction about Freshworks is such, right? So we are a cloud-based software company. We provide software that caters to both the customer engagement as well as employee engagement. We've been in this space for a little over a decade now. Right, we were founded back in 2010. Uh, some of our notable investors include Google Capital, as well as the likes of Tiger Global, as well as Sequoia Capital. Right, and I'm not going to focus too much on the company as such. I'd rather like to dive into what we actually do. And when I mean software that caters to customer engagement as well as employee engagement, this is our solutions portfolio. Right, we do have an extensive set of solutions that range from the likes of customer support, like contact center management tools, to sales and marketing CRMs, as well as telephony solutions, as well as HRMS solutions, right? And the topic of today's meet is basically AI and customer experience. So let's sort of focus on what we have done in the CX space so far, right? And in order to focus on that, I would like for us to start with the changes in customer experience and customer behavior, right, as we know it. And basically, we all know that customers basically spend a lot of time on social media. They spend a lot of time on their mobiles, and there's been as you can see on my screen, a 50% increase in usage of messaging platforms like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, etc. during the past pandemic year. Right, it's been a difficult year for all of us. We've been on social media for different reasons, be it volunteering, be it related to business, or just be it personal life, to stay in touch with our near and dear, right? So when it comes to CX in business, we all would have reached out to be it our banks, or our mobile networks, or anybody else, and we would have all experienced some sort of a hassle, right, when it comes to customer support. The average attention span for the modern customer is 8 seconds. Right, this number might not seem like a big deal in this presentation as such, but then put yourself in the shoes of maybe when you were reaching out to a company, right? You would have wanted a much faster resolution to any of your queries, right? And it's not just about how fast they get back to you, but it's also about the kind of experience that you're provided, right? So the third point on the slide, every customer would like a personalized experience, right? 84% of customers have said that being treated like a person and not a number is actually important to getting a positive review from them, right? So that's something that's sort of a big change from the past, say 20-30 years, right? There's a lot of customer pain points that AI can help address when it comes to customer experience, right? We often hear that AI is the future, right? But the truth is that it's basically already here. And if a business is not really using AI for customer service yet, they're missing out on quite a lot, because integrating AI into customer service can actually drastically improve customer experience. It can help identify customer pain points, automate a lot of manual processes, and even speed up decision making and optimizing service delivery. In fact, most of us are already using AI to some extent, but then using a full-fledged customer experience management platform is definitely going to transform customer experience across multiple channels, right? So let's see why customer experience expectations have risen and how. So customers actually want a business to be accessible to them wherever they are. It needs to be seamless across multiple devices, be it your mobiles, be it your laptops or desktops that you're reaching out to a business from. And they want it whenever they want it, right? 24/7 support has become a top priority for a lot of businesses, because in today's world, businesses cater to a global market, right? Most businesses aren't regional or local. They're all global, which means customers could reach out to them at any time of the day, and they do need to be available 24/7, right? And of course, at the end of the day, a hyper personalized and agile experience is important for instant gratification, right? The lesser the effort from the customer's end, the better the experience is for the customer. So businesses these days are adapting with modern digital technologies for customer service. All of these snippets that you see are from the past couple years. Companies ranging from Amazon to Facebook to Air Asia as well as HSBC use the one common thread in all of these snippets would be AI, right? AI is present across different industry verticals across the globe and is being used for different uh, problems, so for solving different problems as such, right? And the entire world of today is actually shifting to a digital customer experience, right? And what this means is providing a personalized support, not just with the help of chatbots from previous years, but then instead introducing a blend of both bots as well as human assistance across multiple channels, be it the likes of traditional channels like your contact center, your email inboxes, or even a live chat tool that you might have on a website. Also, introducing newer channels like social media in terms of WhatsApp, Facebook, Facebook Messenger, Twitter, as well as Instagram. Because these days, the traffic that you see on these platforms has been tremendous, right? The increase is just phenomenal. And the need to provide consistent and superior customer experience is actually driving a lot of investment in artificial intelligence technology for companies, right? Because a wide range of industries are actually increasingly using AI to transform customer service, and the main component of AI in customer service is machine learning for automation, right? As you can see on the slide, AI is expected to power 95% of all customer interactions by 2025, right? And 2025 is not too far away. Judging from how fast the past year and a half has flown by, we can be rest assured that 2025 is pretty much on the horizon, right? And 80% of customer experience and customer service leaders already use AI or plan to do so within this year, within 2021. And customer experience automation is predicted to be the number one AI use case globally this year, right? This is not a regional indication, but rather a global phenomenon that's taking over the world. So, coming back to Freshworks, we do, like I mentioned, have AI present in all our solutions, right? Ranging from customer support to CRM. And what this AI does, we call it Freddy, right? Freddy is a really cute dog that you can check out later on our website as well. We actually built Freddy so you can provide exceptional customer service no matter where your customer is coming from, when they're reaching out to you, as well as how they're reaching out to you. In fact, AI generated insights into customer behavior can increase profits and improve your return on investment. Most organizations typically view the customer experience or customer support function as a key differentiator. So, getting it right is essential. And you can see that in the trends these days when companies adopt different modern methods of not just providing support, but using different tools and different channels to enhance customer experience for their own customers, right? And again, the tools that companies provide is not just for data scientists, but it is for the end user, the customer service agents or the customer support staff that are going to be on the ground interacting with customers on a day-to-day basis to make their life easier. And something that all of us would have heard right from even Elon Musk's Twitter accounts is that AI has the potential to replace humans, and there is that sort of fear when it comes to adopting AI on a large scale. But the truth is, all AI of today is actually helping us all work together. It is not really replacing the human touch because at the end of the day, no matter what, a bot cannot replace that human touch, right? And we can help provide such intuitive solutions that can help enhance the customer experience at the end of the day without taking a toll on any resources, be it technical or human. Right. Like I said, we provide answers and not articles. Our AI based systems can instantly respond to customer requests. They are context aware. We basically sift through complex data, knowledge based articles, analyze a customer's association with the brand from day one, interpret their query intelligently, and provide an answer. All of this happens within seconds, right? It doesn't matter whether a customer can reach out through WhatsApp, whether they reach out through Twitter or the likes of WeChat or Telegram. We can make sure to get back to the customer on their preferred messaging channel, reduce the load on your customer support team, and improve customer experience across all channels. And this goes back to what I just mentioned, reducing the load on your customer support team. We can provide low turnaround times, leading to a higher customer satisfaction, a better perception of your brand's ability to handle future issues, as well as a reduction in churn of your customers. At the end of the day, if a customer has even a single bad experience for a brand, they are highly likely to move away to a different competitor, because in today's world, they have more than enough options to choose from, be it any service or product that we're offering, right? So Freddy can actually help deflect up to 80% of common queries, and can facilitate up to a 70% reduction in resolution times, right? Again, AI is intelligent by nature, right? AI learns and adapts over time. We have a tool that can help you basically grow your customer experience over a certain period of time, and it keeps learning, it keeps training, and it keeps getting better. So the more knowledge it has, the more information it has at its disposal, the better customer support and better customer experience you can provide. The ML, machine learning algorithms inbuilt, adopt constantly to improve responses using user as well as agent feedback. Honestly, the same cannot be said about most of our competitors, because most of the solutions out there in the market rely solely on keyword based searches, right? Like I said, we are intuitive, and we do have the things like sentiment analysis available inbuilt, which can help improve every single manual process that you might probably be doing at this point in time. So, an experience at the end of the day, it all boils down to whether it's going to be a generic one or whether it feels personalized. Imagine if you were to log into an e-commerce store today, and the bot that is interacting with you is actually a smart bot and not the traditional bot of the olden days, right? It can understand your intent, it can process that information and make suggestions accordingly. It can understand the context of each conversation that a customer is having and make it actually pretty easy for customers to get their needs serviced without asking too many questions, right? There are numerous benefits of implementing AI into a customer service team. These include better customer journey analytics, accurate data to report on, as well as predictive behavior analysis and hyper.
Hello.
Like I mentioned, AI works together with humans. It does not, or it is not going to replace humans. Our bots actually unlock the true potential of your customer service staff. They enhance their work life. They work together with them to offer a seamless customer experience across channels. Our AI helps agents focus on complex customer issues instead of routine, mundane tasks that would keep them occupied, which actually, at the end of the day, don't add much value to customer interactions. We can contribute to a quantifiable result in customer experience, maybe such as a reduction in negative comments on social media, faster ticket resolution, or maybe even lower contacts per order, right? And we do have an omni-channel experience, right? What this means is, be it any channel that a customer reaches out to a brand from, we make sure that that visibility is given, a 360-degree view of the customer is given to the brand. We integrate all of this experience with a single system, instead of making the teams work in silos and offering a plug-in solution for each of the channel, right? So at the end of the day, you get a comprehensive suite of customer engagement and agent productivity AI tools. You can eliminate the need to bring in multiple solutions from multiple vendors, increasing your total cost of overhead as well as complexity and risks associated with it. So, in today's world, like I mentioned, people and AI have already started working together. And we as a company follow a motto of building customers for life. And I believe that in our DNA, there's a lot of things that are in play. It is about personalization of customer experience, it's about making sure all the tools are constantly learning, they're constantly in touch with customers, and it is a scalable process, right? It needs to be working for a 10-member team. It also needs to work for a 100 or a 1,000 member team, right? And the benefits of implementing an AI solution are threefold. The first is going to be for your customers. Of course, your customers will have a seamless experience. It's going to be highly intuitive and highly personalized. We call it a hyper personalized experience, and which would basically keep them happy, reducing churn and giving them a good customer experience. The second benefit is going to be for your own agents. These are the people who toil day in and day out to make sure that your customers have a good experience. And to a company, to a brand, their employees are their first customers, right? Unless the employee themselves believe in the solution or the service they're offering, it's not going to be a good experience for the end customer. So the AI in today's world can increase agent productivity as well as efficiency, and give clear transparency to their supervisors as well as the brands on what their levels of productivity are, what kind of customer queries are coming in today's day, and make sure to give reports that can predict and make sure that these repetitive queries or big significant gaps in customer experience are neutralized, right? And at the end of the day, money talks. In fact, AI can help save money, not just money though, but time and effort as well. And the third benefit of implementing AI would be for your business itself. You can scale your customer support team without the added cost of bringing in numerous agents. Because, contrary to popular belief, increasing the number of human resources doesn't necessarily increase the productivity or the output or throughput at the end of the day, right? So what the goal of every business would be to increase its customer base, to reduce churn and improve customer experience, which can be accomplished with the help of people and AI working together. So this is the Freshworks promise, right? With Freshworks, you're not going to just get a vendor, you're actually going to get a partner who will proactively work with you to deliver business results. And this is coming from me. I actually handle partnerships for the African continent, right? I have worked with businesses the likes of Zenith Bank, likes of Stewart Bank, Sterling Bank, MultiChoice, as well as Liquid Telecom. So you can count on this, that you're not going to get a vendor, but rather a partner. We will help you get up and running, provide guidance and support, and ensure you receive best in class return on investment. Right? All our solutions are going to be implemented effortlessly. We do have in-house teams that will take care of it, and unlike most companies out there, we don't charge a bomb for providing customer support. At the end of the day, we believe we talk the talk, right, and walk the walk. We offer leading 24/7 customer support at no additional costs, without any hidden fees or unexpected charges. We have a dedicated team to provide this, as well as a number of our partners who help with this as well. And like I mentioned before, we do work with a number of the world's largest organizations, right? The likes of, in specifically in South Africa as well, the names that you see. We work with the likes of MultiChoice, Liquid Telecom, and a few other brands ranging across industries, to make sure that we do provide stellar customer experience across the board, right? And I know some of you might, or maybe a lot of you might have a lot of questions. So I'm going to take some questions at the end of the session. We do have my colleague Venkat as well as some other solid people on the panel here to address your questions. I'll drop my email for future contact in the chat box here. And with that, I'm done. Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you very much, Ashwin, for sharing that with us. I'm sure you agree, ladies and gentlemen, that Ashwin is a real versatile professional. We know he's got years of experience in the sales, business development, and customer relationship management part of the business Freshworks. And very interesting to hear from him. A couple of questions that came up for me, which we will delve into in the end. But how do we ensure that AI is addressing the customer problem and not the business problem? I think I'm really looking for an answer around that. And it'll be interesting to hear if anyone who's attending wants to share thoughts in the chat. What do you think? How do we ensure that AI addresses the customer problem and not just the business problem? We're not going to be taking questions at the moment, ladies and gents, just to make up a bit of time. but the Q&A section is open, so feel free to ask your questions. I will be monitoring it, and I will look at the questions and address them during the Q&A session. So there are two areas. If you look on the right-hand side of your screen, one is the chat area, where there's a live chat. We can all engage with each other and discuss any topics that are interesting for us. And then the questions, where if there's any particular question you want to ask to any of the attendees, I will be monitoring that so we can ask questions for you. Ashwin, once again, lovely to see you again. Good to hear from you, and lovely to hear the progress that Freshworks is making in creating meaningful AI that impacts customer experience and its outcomes. Now, ladies and gents, the next speaker who's going to be talking to us is Charles Miller. Charles is an analytics leader of people obsessed with the long-term solution, executed though through medium-term strategies that transform businesses and disrupt industries. Charles is currently the head of personalization within the Center of Excellence at Standard Bank Group. Charles has got a number of formal qualifications, which I found to be quite interesting, including a BSc, a Bachelor of Science in Quantitative Risk Management. Charles started out his career as a financial analyst, moving into credit strategy analysis, as well as impairment analysis with Bayport Financial Services. More recently, Charles has been with the Standard Bank Group for the last 7 years, holding various roles, including a product manager in the credit card division, moved on to both manage and now strategically lead the profit optimization and business lending division of business banking, and now looking after personalization and profit science. So this is a very interesting dimension of customer experience, Charles, as we invite you to share your screen, just the other view if you don't mind. Share your screen, Charles, open your mic and your camera should you wish to do so. But yes, personalization and how we start to achieve that in the organization that is the size of Standard Bank, the scale of Standard Bank, or the number of customers that Standard Bank has in South Africa and throughout Africa. How do we achieve that? Ladies and gents, I'm very pleased to introduce to you Charles Miller from Standard Bank, and he's going to present on driving customer experience through personalization.
Thank you, Eldon. Just want to make sure I'm audible and that you can see the screen in presentation mode.
We are happy. We can see you. We can hear you.
Perfect.
We can see your screen. Happy to go.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. And thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. So as Eldon mentioned, my name is Charles. I look after the Personalization Center of Excellence for Standard Bank Group, the consumer and high net worth business. And we really been on a very exciting journey over the last couple of years in establishing the narrative around what is personalization and how to get this personalization concept to scale into the hands of customers. I think you all can just imagine the complexities that lives into trying to understand that problem in a bit more detail. So the purpose of today's discussion point and the presentation that I'm going to take you through is to try and land the message. So it's not going to be a very technical discussion, but really try and humanize the concept about AI in application and getting the machine learning solutions into the hands of customers and what it means to do it at scale in an organization as big as Standard Bank. So without trying to take too much time, I think it's always important to drive back into the narrative in understanding around how did we get ourselves into this environment, and why is these problems that we are working on today as practitioners a real thing to look at, right? And back about a decade or so ago, the whole theme about big data started to emerge, and all of these hype conversation around what is big data, what does it mean, and it must be on the top of every CFO or CEO's agenda to drive. But back then, the complexity around really comprehending big data was the fact that the technology hasn't really caught up with it. But now, fast forward a couple of years, And we're now starting to see big data at scale and what it actually means. So I always love to use an example of some research on that I've gathered to make this concept about big data a reality. I like to express the following to people. If we just think about what does big data look like at scale, Google processes more than 40,000 searches every second. Users watch over 4.1 million YouTube videos every minute. 1.5 billion people are active on Facebook daily, with almost half or just over 500,000 comments posted and close to 300,000 statuses updated every minute. The latest addition to this big data world is the whole voice and the recognition and the auto AI, with 8 million people using Alexa, Siri, and Google each month. So now the scale starts to really become very evident in front of our eyes. But to humanize this complexity of numbers and trying to understand it, it's really to try and understand the interconnectedness of our digital footprint that we leave in each of these data attributes. Now, to give an example is, you are attending today a conference, AI and customer experience. You might find some of the presenters talk about something that is very interesting to you, and you go and search and read up more about that. Where will you go? You will go to Google. All of a sudden, you're one of the statistics of that 40,000 searches in a second. Now, you might find an article on Google that leads you to a explanation around the thing that you just wanted to find out more details about. That explanation was in the form of a video that some YouTuber post explaining the integral parts of what you want to understand. Now you went from Google search into clicking on a YouTube video to teach yourself or learn about this concept that you are interested in. So you found this to be very valuable and you are very excited about that and you want to share that with the world. So you decide to share or post that on Facebook. Now you went from the 40,000 searches every second statistic to the 4.1 million YouTube video every minute statistic to the 1.5 billion active Facebook users daily. So your statistic starts to leave a footprint about you. And now the next layer that happens is people appreciated your post on Facebook and they start to engage. People leave comments, you comment back. Other people update their statuses. Maybe you've brought something to light that they really like and they want to put that up as a status. So I think once you start to see how a digital footprint really is connected, that's when the view of big data and technology comes to life. Because we as human beings are leaving digital footprints every place we go. And these digital footprints are connected to one another and different ecosystems. And this is what makes personalization viable for the first time, really, after many years of theoretical hype about it. It is the ability to attach these different assets together in order to understand the things that is interested to you and curious about you. So then we move into where did it all start, right? Data started somewhere. The reality is it did, yes, that is correct. It started with the notion of capture data, and that capture data was always very important because it helped us just record actions, activity, information items about people, customers that we are dealing with to have some sort of file of record. Now that moved into starting to store these data attributes and these records for the purpose of recollection at a later point in time. After that, we realized that there's value in learning things about these records that we have in storage, and we started analyzing these data aspects. From analyzing it, we start to say, great, now we know things, but how do we guarantee things? How do we understand signals or events? Or how do we become more certain about things? And that is where we move towards creator data. So the reason why I used the previous example is exactly to the point. Google created the functionality to allow someone to search for something in order to generate data that give them certainty about that person's interests. And that is the golden asset that they are really protecting hard. But now this is where it all starts to really come down into what we call connected data. And this is where personalization really lives, is starting to connect these various aspects in truly understanding the integral part behind the decision of a customer or the decision of a user in order to try and identify the things that matters to them most. So back in 1997, a little bit of a history lesson is this random guy, Jeff Bezos, no one really knows about him, at that point in time said the following in a letter to his shareholders: "Today, online commerce saves customers money and precious time. Tomorrow, through personalization, online commerce will accelerate the very process of discovery." So now, in 1997, Jeff Bezos had the vision to see that the process of personalization is really a journey in helping to accelerate the discovery with customers, being there in those moments, trying to anticipate their needs and really understanding the things that matters to them. That is the real essence around having a vision. And Amazon is often now referred to as the world's most personalized engine, whatever one might want to call it. But the truth of the matter is, and the reality is, it is many years in the making. And it was always designed with the intent of delivering this discovery of personalized aspects with customers to try and drive and accelerate the engagement with customers. So I often like to reference Jeff Bezos with his foresight at that point in time, so far ahead of the future and that given point in time where technology was, and the ability to even conceive what he was trying to say here was very, very unsupported in the evidence of the reality. So great, now personalization. So we have to have more personalized conversations with customers, yet it's a difficult problem to solve. This is where the application of mathematical sciences, data sciences, and behavioral sciences disciplines meet together in deriving and delivering the personalized customer interactions that every customer is nowadays expecting of us. So what is personalization, and how do you design a strategy around personalization? So the things that is very important to know is that customer conversations, and we have to be there in that conversations with the context of what matters to the customer. We need to be there in the moment that it is important to them. And this means if it's real time, it needs to be real time. We need to deliver this through a seamless and a consistent and a convenient omni-channel experience. So it's all summarized by the following 4 components, right? It needs to understand the context and the relevance behind a conversation. We have to derive and deliver that contextually relevant conversation at the right time, in that moment that it really and truly matters to your customers. And we need to deliver that through the preferred channel for that engagement. But that's not all. We have to understand the integral part of what the purposeful engagements really designed helps us to design a customer engagement that brings the meaning out of a conversation. So these things work all together and not in isolation. So this is great, right? So we understand exactly what it is. But then we are faced with this reality. What does this have to do with banking then, right? And I'll give you a brief 5 seconds to think about it. This image on the screen of the tooth, what does this have to do with banking? So there was a survey done where the finding out of that conducted survey was that 71% of millennials are more excited to go to the dentist than hearing from their bank. And I guess that's also the importance around why AI in customer experience and customer experience in general is such an important theme and topic to touch on. And that's why we want to truly drive this. But having said that, there's two schools of thought. The one is mainly driven by the CFA, the CA, and the MBAs. And this is the things that is being taught throughout most of our theoretical years of education and the schools that we've attended to. How do you solve for the headline earnings? And this is very much starting with the product. And that approach often lies us to say, okay, how do we solve this question? Let's express that into a function. So the function of headline earnings is really the sum of the parts. And the parts of an income statement is made up of income, risk, cost, and tax. So if we really want to drive headline earnings, we need to focus on income, risk, cost, and tax. When we look at driving delta value, market beating results, we really need to think about pricing strategies, cross-sell and upsell, and many more of very unique and bespoke, well-researched topics. So this is the one school of thought. But what we found is if you drive these conversations as priority, what function of headline earnings think of income, risk, cost, and tax, it drives the narrative around spray and pray leads. We have to have more leads so that we can reach more customers so that we can get higher sales. And this narrative is fine to derive improved headline earnings, increase your income, increase your cost, but at least at the delta which your income is more. Then the second narrative, we have to convince customers or educate customers. This is very complicated because pricing strategies is very difficult to understand. Cross-sell, meaning we have to convince customers that they need to take something else with something, or upsell, maybe sell something, a subscription or a product higher to the one that they opted for. So there's so many of these conflicting and convincing and educating aspects that leads to adverse selection and creates inactivity. So it's very often found that if we drive the wrong conversations, focusing from an income statement perspective, you will have the wrong outcomes financially as a consequence. So the second school of thought then is, how do we solve for the customer? And the aspiration here is really to start with the customer. So if we think about those formulas again, express it as functions. Headline earnings actually the sum of how often we are meeting our customers' needs. Because if we meet a customer's needs, it is evident that headline earnings will follow. The second is how to drive delta value, is to continuously aspire to exceeding your customers' expectations. Why are these two things very important? By headline earnings, meeting customers' needs, you create willingness to pay. I've very rarely heard about someone very excited to purchase a BMW, but not willing to pay the amount, but only willing to pay that of a VW maybe for that. So it's very important to understand if you really meet the customer's need, you create willingness to pay. If you continuously exceed customers' expectations, you create willingness to stay. Now, this is a way better proposition to take forward, or our hypothesis to put forward to our stakeholders, our engagement officers, to drive larger share of wallet with our customers. So these are the two schools of thought that we needed to put forward and challenge. So a couple of things had to happen. You have to evolve, right? We have to take this narrative around batch-based engagements into real-time event-based streams. The value of data diminish very rapidly over time, right? So from real time, you have truly the essence of the context of that conversation. Really important is you can act on it with immediacy and you can catch the customer in those moments that matter. Wait hours and you lose more probability to engage them successfully. Wait days, you might lost the whole thing. Wait months, the customer feels that they are probably not listened or heard from the organization. So it's very important to understand this narrative around real time and immediacy. But the second thing that we needed to do is move away from this narrative around hindsight reporting as being the prominent descriptive approach in which we design strategies, and move way more past to the cognitive side, driving insights, analytics on-site and personalized. So going through this, we need to understand that there's various barriers to entrance, and achieving success means you have to breach these. So it's very important to get these frameworks, set up the teams and structures in order to drive that. We had to deliver frameworks in order to drive use cases that it talks to the essence of what it means to be contextually relevant at the right time and engaged through an omnichannel experience. This is what we designed a proprietary as well with regards to how to deliver personalized use cases. We have to understand the customer experience DNA. Where in the various life cycle are they at? And how do we meet them at each of these individual decision points that they make? And how do we understand these very bespokely? And what is it that they are doing in order to learn and or discover or evaluate or buy? How are they making these decisions? How do we consistently exceed their experiences in order to drive advocacy? So this is very important to understand. But then also, once we have a customer and on the narrative of DNA, what does a customer DNA truly look like? It is very important that we have a ton of data. So does other organizations. The typical narrative is we understand products, we understand demographics, we understand communications, transactions, competitors, and risk factors. But the truth is, the voice of the customer is only heard once you really double click onto those. And what that looks like. A transaction does not tell us anything about the customer. It's the intent behind that transaction that tells us something about the customer. A customer shopping out or going out for dinner with their family. The thought process behind that transaction is I love dining out. It's not that I paid a 300 Rand or a 500 Rand bill at a restaurant. The holiday that they can't wait for, the excitement behind that, that's the customer emotions, and that is what is important to understand. So how do we derive insights from this? Tens of thousands of lines of code, and I guess the techies on the line will agree to that. It's really a complicated process. It's very difficult to understand and analyze this data. You have to surface through billions of data points. You need to have exceptionally strong infrastructure to land these things with clusters that can handle the compute requirements in order to crunch through these different data points. And you need to do these things in a matter of seconds, get a prediction signal and get an understanding around that. So now that you've delivered all of this, what to do? Who should sponsor this? And how do we get this into the hand of the customer? That lands over into the next phase, which is hundreds of hours spending on presentations and packs and decks in order to get the buy-in from stakeholders to explain what it is that we do and try and derive the value out of these interactions and the models in order to drive the necessary interaction points with the stakeholders to get these use cases in the hands of customers, to build pilots and POCs in order to test, to learn, to get feedback back into the models, to try and improve these different aspects of how to drive customer interactions in a personalized manner. So having said that, I have one final thought that I want to leave you with. How does a data scientist become more customer-centric? And I think it is very important to note that it's the intersection between the business savvy, the tech geek, and the math magician. Having one set of these skills is great, but what is very important is having the intersection of these. Why is that important? Because the storyteller is the one that have empathy, that understands the purpose behind the problem that they're trying to solve. And by understanding, they truly connect to the customer problem. And that is how you deliver a customer-centered strategy and get your work into the hands of customers. Thank you. That is all from my side.
I've got to say, Charles, it was very, very interesting to listen to you. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's very, very pleasing when you hear someone present who not only really is competent in what they do, but also has the passion, and the passion comes through in what is being shared. So we really appreciate that. Thank you for joining us today. Ladies and gents, so just a reminder who Charles is. He is the head of personalization at the Center of Excellence for Standard Bank Group in South Africa. He is an analytics leader of people obsessed with the long-term solution, but it is executed through medium-term strategies that transform businesses and disrupt industries. So we've heard from Ashwin earlier, we've heard from Charles now. So we're going to move on in our AI and customer experience event today, and we're going to move to the Q&A session. So I'm going to invite Venkat, who's the regional lead in the Middle East and Africa at Freshworks, to get ready, share his video, as well as Charles. Charles is going to come back and he's going to participate in the Q&A session. This event is brought to us today by Freshworks. Freshworks Inc. is the parent company behind the suite of products, which includes Freshdesk, Freshservice, Freshsales, Freshcaller, Freshteam, Freshchat, and Freshmarketer. These products are designed to work together to increase collaboration and help teams better connect and communicate with their customers and co-workers. Not to forget, this event was organized and put together by ML Africa, Machine Learning Africa. So big thank you to Zenzele and his team of colleagues that have organized the event, allowed us to learn something from both Freshworks and Standard Bank today. The audience participation is now invited. Two ways that you can get involved. You can use the audience chat functionality in your web browser, and you can also ask any questions in the questions tab of your web browser, which you will see to the right of your screen. Welcome, Venkat, and good to see you again. Welcome back, Charles. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and I would like to hear each of your various different perspectives, and then I'll monitor audience participation, any audience comments or audience questions, and we will throw those in too, as well as a couple of questions that I have. So firstly, Venkat, can you just give us a very quick introduction to who you are and what you do at Freshworks?
Thank you, Eldon. So myself, Venkat, and I lead Africa region as a sales lead for Freshworks. And we are focusing more in terms of customer engagement and ensuring there is a clear customer engagement and the customer expectations are met for the companies and the services what we provide. And then to start with, I mean, there was a question which came across earlier, right? I mean, is artificial intelligence help the customer or the company? So to start with that, if I had to give a view around, so it is no secret that the customer experience has risen as a top priority for most of the companies today. And businesses are putting in a lot of effort in terms of ensuring that the customers enjoy their experience and just not enjoying their experience alone. Also, they share their experience with others. And one of the best way to delight a customer is to resolve their questions as well as the problem as quickly as seamlessly as possible. But nowadays, it's coming out to be difficult when the organization do really well, and especially as they scale up faster. And that's when the artificial intelligence come into picture. And if I had to say, is artificial intelligence helping the customer or the company? In both ways. So for a customer, of course, it is giving a fastest answer. That's number one. And also it gives a clear insight in terms of what they are looking at. And it is more of a predictive insights. And there is a stronger customer engagement it creates. When that is going to be the case, the customer engagement is on a higher side. And also the company and the services gets a benefit of it. And that's where the Freshworks bots and all other desk-related services coming across.
Venkat, we're definitely seeing that. As you know, I'm a customer experience consultant, and we have these kind of conversations with our clients as well. They're looking for a balance of how do we serve our customers better and how do we decrease cost to acquire new customers and cost to serve. So I'm interested in seeing how AI plays a more meaningful role, not only in but how AI and AI in CX actually starts to find its way into customer experience standards that are adopted by organizations such as CXPA, CXSA in South Africa, and any other such standards. So thank you for sharing that with us. Charles, I'd like to ask you a question. How do we see the digital adoption with respect to customer engagement?
So Alden, I think it's a really great question. The reality is that customers, you will have a very strong dependence towards the type of problem. So what we found is, depending on the type of solution that customers are trying to solve or the problem that they're trying to solve, they often find that decision-making process to be very dependent on the solution that they choose in which they want to solve it. So for instance, if a customer wants to purchase a house and going through the bond process, it's a much more time consuming. I want to see it a big financial decision. I want to see the reality of all of the various aspects around how to drive the right type of engagement with someone. And the key thing there is face-to-face interactions is really what is important there. So the channels then often is something that customers prefer to go into a branch or into a consultant facing environment. Whereas when customers start to realize that there is certain things that they can do digitally, they tend to do it digitally. But the thing is all about educating customers around exactly that stuff that they can start to do digitally, because not everyone always knows what the functionalities is inside of the digital solutions, because the pace at which innovation is happening is very strong. And that is often such a massive learning curve for customers that the adoption needs to follow a slow process. So having said that, there's no easy answer to that question, because the reality is very dependent on the type of problem, but also the customer's understanding of their various solutions and what they can and cannot do. But what we have definitely seen is an acceleration of adoption in the digital space with COVID and the pandemic. So we as humans are intended to learn to adopt to survive, and adaptation has really driven such a massive spike in digitalization and digital adoption, to the extent that the organizations and businesses needed to really rapidly accelerate their journey in order to meet customers there. And I think if your strategy is customer centered, listening to the voice of the customer is often by looking at the actions that they take and the decisions that they make. And the decisions that we are seeing today is more and more customer wants to do it in the comfort of their house or the comfort of their space and in the palm of their hands. So having a strategy and having a solution there is absolutely critical.
Thank you very much. So I have a particular view on the role of a business, which is not, and I think this definition is probably the way I view digital and AI as well. The business itself is not what the customer wants or its product. It's actually playing a role in helping the customer to achieve something that's meaningful in their life. So digital transformation, AI, all of these things need to help the customer, give him, and I'll speak for myself, I like my time. I like to be in control. And that's what digital enables for me. It's not because I love being on, Standard Bank's website. It's because I know it's in the palm of mind. When I want to do it, I can transact and do what I want to achieve. Just a reminder of the question, Venkat, just to see if you have got any additional views to add to what Charles has shared with us.
Sure, definitely. Thanks, Eldon, for bringing it again.
How do
So
we see
when we look at, yeah, sorry, Eldon, did I miss you?
please carry on.
Okay, thank you. So when we look at the artificial intelligence and how it helps in terms of customer engagement, nowadays the customers are not just looking at it in terms of just getting the solution alone. And if you look at the recent survey which has had happened in terms of customer engagement or understanding what customer is expecting or looking forward, they wanted to have their query addressed within 15 minutes. This
Okay.
is about 88% of customers call out. Their query had to get addressed within 15 minutes. And you may be wondering how about the remaining 12%, and they want between 15 to maximum of 60 minutes, which is about 1 hour. And when that is going to be the case, gone are the days where we go back and check the mails and call them and give a resolution. That is not the way it's supposed to be. And we do get queries from different platform, and queries are coming in from social media, queries are coming over a phone, and queries are coming from mail. When that is going to be the scenario, we need to have a system which would integrate all these and address customers' query at one go. That is what the customer's expectation is all about. And when we bring an artificial intelligence here, when we bring a strong bot here which would integrate all these channels together and give a solution, what happens here? The customer gets the fastest answer, and which is going to be a quick one, and also they get the resolution done. And the second area here is the customer engagement is increasing. And I just go back to Charles' point, Charles Muller point, so he did make a statement, willingness to pay or willingness to stay. When it comes to customer engagement, of course, we must talk about willingness to stay. That is something what we need to improvise. When we start improvise that, of course, it would be even more easier for the company to serve. And when we need to increase that, obviously we need to invest on artificial intelligence to engage our customers and give a faster resolution. And nowadays, people are not looking at fast response. They are looking for fastest resolution. The first time resolution must be within 15 minutes. That's what they are looking at. And that's when the artificial intelligence come into picture, Ella.
Thank you. I like that very much. Yeah, very practical. It needs to be almost as fast as, I guess, picking up the phone and speaking to someone. One of my personal frustrations is when, and I'm going to name it, a company like Google, it's impossible to get hold of someone on the phone. You have to email, and then they take 24 to 48 hours to respond to your email. It's really unhelpful, and for me, creates a very, very poor customer experience. So just wanted to look at one or two or three comments that have come through the chat so far. Let's see. Oscar, I don't know how to pronounce your surname, Oscar, please forgive me. So I'll just go my first name, Oscar from Kabarak University. So it seems like we've really got a global audience that has joined us today. Pleasure to have you, Oscar. And he said, great one, Charles Miller. So obviously really enjoying the information, the insight that you shared with us, Charles. Then a couple of comments that have already, or sort of questions that have already come in. The first one from, and can you get this name, John F. Kennedy, who's the technology lead at Sarifika. Is that correct, Sarifika? Charles, I'm going to ask you if you have any thoughts about what John F. Kennedy has said. To achieve the wow factor in CX, there's a lot of data collected about an individual. So this really talks to your presentation quite well. And where one can see all the data that has been collected and been fed into the algorithms, how can we make the process of data collection above board? Is data collection not above board?
So I think that's such an important question, and we at Standard Bank, and I guess many of the financial institutions feels very strongly about this, is the privacy. What one must understand, that the most important assets that a financial organization has is the aspect of trust. Trust beyond what you will give a Google or a Facebook or whatever the case might be. Customers choose to deposit their funds and their money with the banks because they trust the banks. And we have built these trust coefficient over centuries of really deep thought around dealing things above board and ethically. And I think it also really comes very nicely into Tabo's question around privacy and invasion of privacy. The reality is nothing can be done without consent. And in the context of South Africa, I have less insights in the rest of the continent and abroad. But in the context specifically of South Africa, we are governed very heavily around what we can and cannot do with data and how we collect that data and for what purposes we collect the data. There's quite an extensive governance factor around protection of personal information. That act is coming into play. And we as an organization really needs to give it a whole lot of thought and to ensure that all of the data that we do collect is collected in a manner in which customers has consented. And the second thing is that it's being used also in the manner in which the customers can understand the benefit coming back to them. So yeah, it's a very important question. I think there's often, I think the greatest learnings is often I refer to Facebook, how they get certain aspects sometimes very wrong, and the backlash that they have in losing trust in and their ability to protect their data, the customers' data, is really massively, I would say, exciting, because it shows you that consumers do give backlash to these big corporates that want to do whatever they want to do. And Facebook has been on the receiving end multiple times over the last couple of years, where customers just said to here and not further, and they needed to respond very quickly. So I think this is a field that I don't believe there's enough research being done on. And the ethical application of AI is something that often gets the latter part of airtime in forums like this, in webinars and presentations. It's the least sexy thing, right? It's not super exciting, but it is probably the most important part of it all. So as privacy is important, the ethical application of what you do with that data is even more so important. So it's very good questions and important ones. And I guess the only answer that I can give is that industries are paying a lot of attention to it, because they understand the concept of trust. And you have your customers trust once. There's many sharks out there trying to get hold of your customers, and you need to protect them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And when you've seen very quickly the conversation about AI and customer experience evolves into privacy. So I'm not surprised this topic has come up. But Venkat, I want to ask you to weigh in here. We're seeing in the last 2-3 years the prominence of GDPR. I'm seeing it in a lot of the cloud-based systems that we use to run our business, to support our customers. In South Africa, within the next couple of weeks, the POPI, the Protection of Personal Information Act, becomes law. And so, what are you seeing in terms of this component, and what is Freshworks doing to ensure the customer trust is not violated, and doesn't negatively impact the customer experience?
Yeah, thanks, Aldan. This is an interesting topic, So data privacy plays all the more important role nowadays, because customers are getting engaged from different continent to different people. And at times you may not know the query which you are raising it, who addresses and where they are operating from, which continent are they operating from, are they within the territory, who knows? Because the things are happening through a machine, right? So when that is going to be the case, data privacy play a vital role. And most of the companies are trying to ensure, and in specific with respect to Freshworks, of course, we are GDPR compliant, and any such data protection law which come across, of course, we ensure we adhere to that with respect to the country's law as well as the limit, so that we enhance our clients' customer experience. And when it comes to data protection, of course, there won't be any, there is zero tolerance level in terms of the way we follow it across. And I would say we are kind of an early entrant in terms of adapting to GDPR requirements when it comes to data protection. And at the same time, just not about European Union, of course, in with respect to Africa and with respect to the specific countries what we operate for, we go by law with respect to the privacy protection laws and we adopt to it. And when that is going to be the scenario, it is all the more important for us to ensure the data, whatever we host or we take from our customer, is protected by law and it is returned to the customer in a safest manner. And the data, whatever we hosted, of course, it is protected and it is safe in our hands. And we ensure the local country's law as well as the continent like GDPR or the US data protection or the human privacy data which comes across in Greater China. Of course, we ensure we follow those. And that helps us a lot more in terms of saving our customers' personal data.
Thank you very much. A couple of comments in the live chat. Karen Rue with Extreme Business Network. Thank you for joining us, Karen. She's paid a compliment to everyone who's been involved. Great AI insights today, with thanks to all the contributors. So it's a massive, massive pleasure to be with you all, to be hosting this event and chatting through AI and its impact on CX with you all. Cosmos, portfolio analyst at NCBA Bank PLC. He has asked if a recorded version will be available after the webinar. Cosmos, yes, the webinar is being recorded, and I'm sure the team at ML Africa will communicate with you on where you can obtain a recording of the webinar. So yes, there will be a recording available for you. Question is coming as well from Justine Grimmer. Not sure if you'd be happy to take this one first, Charles. But how does one overcome the inherent bias that coders code into AI? A question, perhaps, just to add to that, what we see quite often in doing our CX consulting, a business's customer base is primarily made up of a certain demographic. And that demographic may or may not represent broadly the demographic of the entire country, right? But that's your, and call it cash cow in inverted commas. And therefore, all the decisions that the business makes are to the benefit of this demographic. In a funny sort of way, that's inherent bias. So if the demographics change, or if the business realizes a new opportunity that they can exploit in a different demographic, they very often, or they sometimes take the old thinking, the old bias, and they apply to the new demographic. How do we ensure that we don't do that in the world of AI?
Yeah, this is such a rich conversation. And I guess for me, the important thing here is the whole purpose of a AI model is to discriminate. It's finding the optimal point of the objective function that you're trying to achieve. So I don't think we code in inherent biases. I think we design discriminative type of hypotheses and we apply inherent bias data to answering that or finding an answer for that. So when we look at it from that perspective, your point, Eldon, is absolutely spot on with regards to the more niche your audience of customer base is, the more discriminative you would be to benefiting that niche. And this is the biggest problem that AI is struggling with, is the narrative around echo chamber. So if you just think about Google search and the AI application there, you become so embedded in your own ecosystem of things that the AI is pushing towards you, that the variety of what is supposed to be an open world of information is being excluded from your results, is being excluded from your eyes, and is being excluded from you in some instances in solutions. So it's all about trying to find that balance, and I guess that's such a difficult thing, and hence why I said earlier in one of my answers was that I don't think there's enough research being applied into understanding the ethical practices of doing AI at scale. because if you do not bring in diversity into your structures, into your teams, into your thinking, that just can obviously feel excluded when they are part of a project. If someone feels like, hold on, what I'm seeing here is not representing my demographics, that is what diverse team setups really solve for. So you have that view to say, hold on, we solved a part of the question, but the answer is incomplete. So I feel excluded from that, which means there's more people that is potential customers that will feel excluded from that solution as well. So no, it's such a rich question, and it's a very difficult thing to solve. I feel globally what has shown quite tremendous success is diversification in teams, making sure that you apply the ethical questions before you enter into design and solution executions, just to have that extra layer of eyes and ears onto it and thinking. Asking tough questions is very important, because that's the only way you can bring these things to light.
Thank you very much. I want to ask a different question to you now, Venkat. Yeah, tough year, 2020, and to an extent 2021. A lot of businesses have gone out of business, or at the very least had reduced income. The world, I think, the future of employment, for example, is no longer with large organizations, but with small businesses who also want to have the benefit of AI solutions, such as what Freshworks offers and so on. But given that AI in particular requires expensive storage infrastructure, huge volumes of data, powerful computing systems, how can we actually bring SMEs into the game and make sure that they can also take advantage of AI given their limited budgets?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. So to give a view here, so we also run a startup program to support all the startup companies in terms of using such customer experience, number one. And number two, these customer solution tools, I mean, customer engagement tools are not so expensive, to be precise, because those were the days when the AI came into picture. Of course, it was expensive, and we were just breaking our head in terms of how many agents do I need to cut if I have to engage in artificial intelligence. But that is not the case now. I mean, artificial intelligence are here just not to reduce the number of agents, and of course, it is to ensure their effectiveness as well as the productivity increases, and so we reduce the customer spend time in terms of seeking their answer for the queries. And when it comes to startup or a smaller organization which are really growing well now, and we do have a startup program to support them, so they get the benefit of it and they do not spend huge money on it, number one. And second thing, these customer engagement programs or the artificial intelligence tools like bots are definitely not costly, and they are very much affordable for startup companies, and they do get the maximum productivity out of it. And of course, we are very much open in terms of supporting those companies with respect to these products.
Thank you very much for that answer. And another one to you: are we differentiating between the customer response and the resolution?
Yeah. So, I mean, customer, as I pointed out earlier, most of the customers, at least the survey had gone with about not less than 5,200 plus customers across Africa and Middle East. So 88% of them say that I want the resolution to be given within 15 minutes. And the remaining, of course, they call out within 60 minutes. When that is going to be the case, when a query come across, the query can come from social media or over a phone or a mail or from anywhere. When a query comes to us, there is no meaning in we call and say, yes, of course, thank you so much for receiving the query. We acknowledge it, and we will come back within a couple of hours or a couple of days for a resolution. Those days have gone, and customers are not ready to wait for. And when that is going to be the case, the customers are looking forward to have a resolution for the query, whatever they raise. And that is where the artificial intelligence come into picture. The queries can come from different platform, and as of course, as Charles pointed out, of course, there is a big data machine which run across at the back end, and it has all the answers for the queries, whatever been raised by the customer. So the intelligence come into picture in terms of picking from those data and answering customers' queries at the earliest and giving them the resolution instead of just sharing an acknowledgement or a response. And that's when the bots and customer engagement tools are coming into picture.
Thank you for that. A couple of more questions and comments have come through. Oh, how do you pronounce this name? Mirage. I so apologize for botching the pronunciation of your name. But Senior Advanced MES and ERP Solution Engineer at Epic. Your question or comment, driving AI to increase CX does require a level of change management. Always a good point. My personal opinion is that customer experience management is really all about influence and change management. What is the best practice to drive this innovation to growth and get the customer to lean towards the tech-driven experience as opposed to being hesitant? So I'm going to ask Charles a question just to tie into that. What he thinks the best implementation, given all the research, Charles, what's the best case study / implementation of AI and CX that you've seen? While you think about it, I'll maybe to take one or two more comments, just to give you some time to think. Carbo Richard, Mr. Nope, has Freshworks not ventured into the Botswana market? Because I think when it comes to CX, most companies are not up to standard in terms of delivering the best CX. Very interesting question, Carbo. Yeah, we believe that there's always room for improvement in as far as CX is concerned. Before we go to technology, I would want to think about, if you're asking on behalf of an organization, what are you seeking to achieve with your CX? Do you first have your CX strategy in place? Is it talking to the needs of your customers? Do you actually understand your customers and then go to the technology? But I think it's a legitimate question, and we can ask the Freshworks team to share email addresses either in the chat or through ML Africa, the conference provider. Charles, I hope you're ready now to give us an answer, but what's the best AI and CX case study that you know of? African would really be great.
So I think what is important for me to establish here is just to take a step back and understand exactly, unpack the questions into the components in which it's made up of, right? So first is, how do we driving AI to increase customer experience and the requirement of change management? Change management in twofold, right? Change management, one, in the organizations that support the development of this. And let's be very frank, we're in a world where the economic activity of the human beings is being highly contested with the advancements of technology. And the fear of being replaced is something that is very evident in so many people's thoughts process. That exact same fear of being replaced is actually unfounded, because it's not a fear of being replaced. It is fear of trying to understand exactly how to learn new things. But the key thing is us as humans are geared to adopt and adapt. The adaptation requirements in order to take on these new things has proven every sort of revolution that we've gone through over the past decades. Humans have adapted and we have persevered through these things. Now, change management is an uncomfortable thing. It is something that you need to replace what you are very comfortable with. So if you think about, why would you replace something that you already have a good experience of? You have to make the experience better. So how do you get people to adapt AI into the customer experience or the solutions in the technical side of the world? Is by improving the experience, because you are in contest of an existing experience. So if this whole AI in a customer experience is but one aspect, remember the competition here is really the existing inherent experiences to which customers has become accustomed to. So think about it in the world of banking. The customers have become accustomed to going into a branch, meeting someone face to face. They appreciate the conversation aspect behind talking about their children. Maybe if you're slightly an older customer, talking about the children, building up that relationship with a person, a human being, feeling connected. That is an experience that you cannot replace necessarily with AI, or can you? And that for me is the critical question here is there's that aspect of AI and customer experience must go hand in hand. But the only way you can drive the necessary adoption and getting the mentality or the mental shifting mindset will require people to have an enhanced experience. And Eldon, to the point around a good example that I often use in this instance is, and maybe it's not as much AI as it is just technology in general, but before smartphones really became a thing, everyone was very happy with the experience of having the ability to call someone, picking up the phone, putting your number in, and having a voice on the other side. That was the experience. How do you beat that? And that's where the world of chat became. So the experience, and then it was all this resistance. It's like, it's so uncomfortable. What is this? Now do you need to chat and talk and WhatsApp and stuff? And the older generation really struggled to adopt that. And now if we look at a couple of years later down the line, the majority of the groups that I'm in WhatsApp is family groups, old people, and they are almost the masters of the technology if you think about it from that perspective. Why? Because an experience that they didn't have the ability to connect to so many of their siblings or people or family members at scale, they can't replace that with a phone call. They can do that in a collective chat. They feel connected. So the customer experience and the technology connected together really convinced the adoption cycle. So it's important to always say change management is an important part of it. But if change management gives you too big of resistance, maybe your experience isn't right. You have to work harder in getting the experience spot on and nailed, because adoption becomes then seamless.
Yeah, we really are out of time. Seamless customer experience is actually one of the questions that I'd written down. And maybe we can get into that at some point. But really, we are at the end of the time that has been allocated for us to chat today. We've really enjoyed the contributions that you shared with us. Ashwin Sankar, Senior Executive at Freshworks Inc., Charles Miller, Head of Personalization at the Center of Excellence within Standard Bank in South Africa, as well as Venkat, and your surname just escapes me now, but thank you very much. Also involved in managing customer experience solutions for Freshworks across the African market. Ladies and gents, that is all we have time for, all we have planned for you today. Super, super pleased to have been with you all. I'm an open connector. I'd love to keep in touch, share thoughts and ideas with everyone. So I'm going to pop my email address into the chat, and all of you are invited to do the same. We are trying to build a community of CXs in Africa, around Africa, particularly within the CX Group, the organization that I represent, where we're trying to create and tell the greatest African stories. So we invite you on that journey. Let's engage in whatever way we can, and start to participate meaningfully in creating and telling those African CX stories. Thank you very much, and we're going to return to the networking lounge so that we can freely move from table to table, chat to one another, and meet and greet. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.